Tonight on Denver 7 News at 6.
I still haven't gotten over it.
The money was funny. The crime was not.
Almost had a heart attack. I'm almost 70 years old, and it took my breath away.
President Biden sure moves fast for a 78-year-old.
To a nation waiting for action, let me be the clearest on this point. Help is on the way.
Nearly a dozen executive orders were signed today, and we'll break down the big ones.
8 months have gone by and nothing to show for it.
Denver police step away from a task force designed to improve their tactics.
He said to me, and I quote, police officers have their own venue where they can speak.
Already weather advisories in effect for the mountains for the weekend, and how much snow to expect in the metro.
And a Colorado town rebounds by way of a truly superior business model.
It's driving repeat customers. It's driving new business.
Good evening. We're glad you're with us tonight. I'm Shannon Ogden.
And I'm Ann Trujillo. Following the murder of George Floyd, Denver leaders pledged to shut up and listen to the community's concerns about police tactics. Then the community spoke, and the city apparently decided it didn't like what it was hearing. Or
not having a voice of their own. Now, law enforcement were so upset over how they were being treated, they walked away from the task force that they helped create.
Denver 7's Ivan Rodriguez tonight on how this got so out of hand and what happens with the commission now.
After a year filled with tense encounters and protests over police brutality, conversations began about how police can change their approach.
I want to make this about how the community can work together to improve the way we do policing and public safety.
Dr. Robert Davis is the project coordinator for the task force to reimagine policing and public safety. To bring all sides to the table, he reached out to Denver's Department of Public Safety to take part in these hard conversations.
Because we wanted them to serve as advisors as well as content experts, so that as the community is thinking through what is the best approach to public safety, we would have their expertise to lean upon.
But Executive Director Murphy Robinson says issues arose from the start.
However, what I told them is to do is lean in and let's just really allow Dr. Davis to run this program.
In a letter to Dr. Davis, Robinson says law enforcement participants in the task force were told not to attend or participate in meetings and community discussion, and refrain from sharing their thoughts, comments, and experiences, limiting their role to answering questions.
In context, speak when spoken to. And that's just not the type of environment, number one, I want my staff a part of, but also just that we need as the policy catalyst for our community.
For those reasons and what he says is a lack of diversity in the task force, Robinson decided to remove personnel from the group as well as pull $50,000 in funding.
I think this is just the worst time ever for community and police to disengage.
Dr. Davis says Robinson's reasons are based partly on misinformation, which he laid out in his response.
And second of all, I think that it was made somewhat from an emotional perspective. Once Director Robinson has an opportunity to reflect on how important this work is, that we'll probably see a reversal to his decision.
Both men have a similar goal, creating a safer and better place for their communities. For now, the task force says the door is open for public safety to return, and Robinson says they'll happily review any recommendations submitted to them on how to improve policing. Ivan Rodriguez, Denver 7.
An appeal hearing is expected to last into tomorrow for an Aurora police officer fired over photos mocking the death of Elijah McClain. Jason Rosenblatt was one of the officers who detained McClain. Rosenblatt is not seen in these photos. Rather, he was instead fired for receiving them in a text and then responding, quote, "ha ha." A decision on whether Rosenblatt should be reinstated will likely come next month. A live pipe bomb was discovered on the football field at Inglewood Alternative High School this afternoon, and the device was detonated safely. Anyone with information should call police.
The firefighters say an explosion that blew the door off a garage in Firestone was not caused by a natural gas leak. At least one person was taken to the hospital and a pet was rescued as well. Well, a woman with a history of driving drunk been sentenced to 12 years in prison for a deadly crash. Arapahoe County prosecutors say Kayla Cushman was high on meth when she crossed into oncoming traffic on South Platte Canyon Road and killed 60-year-old Alice Wan. Cushman had 2 prior convictions for DUI.
A Coal Creek Canyon man thought he was getting a fair deal for his car, and then he looked a little closer. Contact Denver 7's Lance Hernandez has the story.
Car was sitting right here.
Anthony Anderson placed an ad on Craigslist seeking to sell his 2002 BMW station wagon. He said it was in great condition, but wanted to sell to keep from tearing it up driving up and down this rocky driveway. He also planned to sell his pickup and was going to use the proceeds to purchase an SUV with more room for his dog, Falcon. A man in his 60s came by, test drove the Beamer, and said he'd take it.
I handed him the title, he handed me the money, he counted it in front of me.
Anthony says there were blue stripes on the $100 bills, so he assumed they were okay and put the cash in his pocket.
Next morning, I put them in my wallet, went to the bank, handed the money to the bank teller.
The teller at Key Bank in Golden told him the bills were no good. Fake.
Almost had a heart attack. I'm almost 70 years old, and it took my breath away. I still haven't gotten over it.
Anthony wants his car back. He said the suspect, in his 60s, was a smooth talker who said he likes to buy things from older people because they take care of them.
Those old people can't see. So when he hands you these bills, unless you really, really, really look, you're not going to know.
The Secret Service says counterfeit crooks cost Denver area businesses and individuals about $2 million a year. How can you protect yourself? Counterfeit detector pens don't always work, so the Jeffco Sheriff suggests carrying out the transaction in front of a police department or sheriff's office with cameras and snapping photos of the customer's car, and license plate. If the buyer is reluctant,
there's probably a reason why.
If you spot this car, contact local police. Lance Hernandez, Denver7.
At the behest of Colorado's Jason Crow and his colleagues, a congressional watchdog will investigate the security failures that allowed that mob to storm the U.S. Capitol and occupy it for several hours. The investigation will center primarily on coordination between the feds and local police.
Politico is reporting that Senator Mitch McConnell is proposing impeachment proceedings begin in 2 weeks. That would give the former president's attorneys time to prepare a case. It would also presumably give the powerful Kentuckian time to decide how he intends to vote on the matter. McConnell was openly furious about the events of January 6th, but would face significant pushback from within the GOP for voting against Donald Trump. Today, Congresswoman Lauren Boebert introduced a bill to block President Biden from re-entering the Paris Climate Accord. It does not really have a prayer of passing. Nearly 200 nations have ratified the Paris Agreement.
Well, the bulk of President Biden's COVID agenda will go through Congress. Now, the rest he intends to handle on his own. The president issued several executive orders and directives today, including a requirement for masks to be worn on planes, trains, and buses. The Department of Health and Human Services has been told to crunch the numbers and come up with universal guidelines on reopening schools. FEMA has been told to break open the piggy bank and give states what they need to get people vaccinated. The Defense Production Act, which gives the federal government authority to tell private companies to start making products the country needs, will be used far more extensively than the previous administration.
We'll move heaven and earth to get more people vaccinated for free and create more places for them to get vaccinated, to mobilize more medical teams to get shots in people's arms, and to increase vaccine supply and get it out the door as fast as possible.
Also, President Biden announced Wednesday that the U.S. would remain a member of the World Health Organization after all. Today, Dr. Fauci showed up via video call to let them know the administration was ready to get to work.
780 Coloradans are in the hospital tonight with COVID. 129 people died from it today. Nearly 2,000 cases were reported, and the state positivity rate fell below 5%. All but 5 counties are in level orange restrictions. Pitkin is the more extreme level of red. Gunnison, Jackson, and Saguache are in the more lenient level yellow. Hinsdale County in the southwest corner of the state is the lone blue spot on the map. Blue is the second least restrictive level on the dial. Nearly 1,000 Colorado businesses, nursing homes, and the like are considered active outbreak sites tonight. And among the latest to make the list, a New Year's party in Durango, Monarch Mountain, and a dorm at Colorado School of Mines.
Well, the proposed development has a Broomfield neighborhood talking. Specifically, they're talking about how much they don't want it. Here's Sean Toll.
There's going to be one building here.
Zach Cusick loves his new home in Broomfield.
I moved in here April of 2020.
But just across the street, there's a chance of a new neighbor.
No, I can speak for myself and all my neighbors that we are totally against the project.
The proposal would be right across the street from his backyard.
SunCap was proposing to put a series of warehouses that would have bays that is 520 or 530,000 square feet of building in what we might call a light industrial concept.
Space is going to be developed, and I totally understand that, but just something of that scale and that kind of almost mini industrial park is just not right for right across the street from a neighborhood.
This is all very early in the process, with the city council hosting the developer for the concept phase at a meeting Tuesday.
I thought it was actually very beneficial.
The city recommended a transition to keep truck traffic off Huron where all the new houses are.
How they come back is 100% up to them.
When and how that is, if at all, remains to be seen. And a lot can happen in the interim.
And it's our job to give direction that we think that balances the rights, of the groups, that's fair to everybody, if that's possible.
But neighbors know what they want.
Hopefully these kind of plans get revised.
Sean Toll, Denver7.
Coming up, you get the money for nothing and the ribs for free.
Plus, Gary Kubiak calls it a career again.